Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Zevachim Samach Beis. We are beginning on Samach Aleph Amud Beis, around 14 lines off the bottom of the Amud. We begin with a Mishnah in Meseches Midos, describing the exact dimensions of the Mizbeach. Now actually, there was a change, because they enlarged the Mizbeach of the second Beis HaMikdash. Tanan Hasan, we have a Mishnah discussing the advent of the second Beis HaMikdash. She'olu b'nei HaGolah, when the Yidden came up from Golos, from Bavli, and rebuilt the second Beis HaMikdash and the Mizbeach within it, they actually made it bigger than what it was in the original first Beis HaMikdash. Because there, during the time of Shlomo HaMelech, it was merely, the exterior dimensions were merely 28 by 28. But then as you make your way up, the Yesod, the side of all the steps, which pretty much narrow, they affect a narrowing of the top surface. Because the Yesod is an amma wide, the Saiviv an amma wide, the Krona is an amma, the walkway on top was an. So you shave off pretty much 4 ammas from either side. You start with 28 from side to side, and now you're down to 20. Top surface of Mizbeach was 20 by 20, but this time they made it 4 ammas wider, for a total of 24 by 24 top surface. How did they do that? Instead of expanding it, 2 ammas on all sides, they made like an L-shaped addition on 2 sides of the Mizbeach, on the Daraim and on the Marav. 4 ammas to Daraim, 4 ammas extension to Marav, which resulted in a 32 by 32 Mizbeach, counting exterior dimensions on the very bottom, and 28 by 28 on the top. Tanan Hasam K'she'olav b'nei HaGolah, when they came up from Golos, so Yosifu Olav Dalad Amos min Hadorim v'Dalad Amos min Hamarav, they added a 4 amma addition on 2 sides, Darim and Marav. Kimin Gamma, like a Greek Gamma letter, which is like a long Chaf, a L. My time, why did they have to add and enlarge the second Beis HaMikdash Mizbeach over the first? My time, Omar Rav Yosef, because the Karbanis exceeded the capacity of the Mizbeach, Mishum T'lo Sipek. There were too many Karbanis. They had to enlarge the Mizbeach to accommodate the extra Karbanis. Only Abaye, says Abaye to Rav Yosef. But we know that based on the Psukim, that the crowds were much smaller during the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, vis-a-vis the first. Hash the Mikdash Rishon. Look, even during the first Beis HaMikdash, which featured Kanai Nahar, a huge number of Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. The Chsibei, there were as many as the sand at the sea, at the beach. The Chsibei Yehuda of Yisrael, Rabim, Kechoy Ashar Asfas Hayam. So the Yidden was so many, so numerous, and still the Mizbeach could handle all their Karbanis Sipek. Of course, during Midah Sheni, where the crowds were much smaller initially when they came up to Yerushalayim, when they came up to Eretz Yisrael. The Chsibei, it says there were merely 40,000 Yidden present at that time. The Chsibei Kala Kahal Ke'echad, the entire community amounted to merely Arba Riboy, 4 times 10,000, 40,000. A relatively small number. Lo Sipek, can't the Mizbeach accommodate them all without need for expansions and extensions? Omar Leis, Rav Yosef responds to Abaye. If you're looking at it practically, based on, Derech HaTeva, laws of nature, you're right. Hasam Eish Shel Shamayim Misayatan. The answer is because during the Beis HaMikdash, first Beis HaMikdash, they merited to have the presence of that spiritual heavenly fire that helped them out, that assisted in burning the Karbanis, as many as they were. But Hacha here, during the second Beis HaMikdash, they lost that feature. Ein Eish Shel Shamayim, the heavenly fire was not there to help them, Misayatan. In fact, Rashi brings the Gemara in Yuma, based on the pasuk V'kavda, the hay, tells us that during the second Mikdash, they were missing 5 very important features, one of which was the Eish Shel Shamayim. So the reason for expansion, absence of heavenly fire. I'll tell you why they expanded for a totally different reason. Shisin Haisifu. They wanted to incorporate the shisin into the Yazorah. What are the shisin? They would pour the wines that come along with all the karbanos, as mentioned in this week's Parsha Shlach. Likewise, on Sukkot, they would pour an additional pour of water. Now, initially, during the first Beis HaMikdash time, they would pour it on the floor, inside like a drain, into an underground chamber, alongside the Mizbeach's southwestern corner. Then they realized that really it's meant to be incorporated, that's meant to be a built-in feature embedded in the Mizbeach itself. So how do you get it in the Mizbeach? They couldn't move it, it was meant to be in that place. So they extended the Mizbeach to cover that area as well. And now you can pour the wine on top of the Mizbeach. They created like some sort of a pipe, a drain system, which would through which the liquids would travel through the actual Mizbeach structure into the underground draining system. And that was the reason for expansion and extension of the Mizbeach to cover that shisin. Now, Miyikara Savar, initially, during the first Beis HaMikdash, they figured, actually, you can't have that incorporated. It can't be embedded. Just the opposite. Mizbeach Adama, the pasuk describes the Mizbeach Adama has to be on solid footing. No hollow, subterranean features beneath the Mizbeach. Shu Otum Ba'adam, it's meant to be on solid ground. And that's why these shisin were located beside the Mizbeach. Although by Soif Savar, later on, they realized, no, just the opposite. Shtia ka'achila. The liquid consumption of the Mizbeach is meant to be just like the solid consumptions. And just like the solid, meaning the karbonos, the meat, and all that, is put on the Mizbeach itself, likewise, the liquids offered to the Mizbeach have to be absorbed into the Mizbeach itself. Which necessitated this expansion, resulting in the shisin being embedded in the Mizbeach. Now, as to the question, what happens to Mizbeach Adama? Solid footing, no drainage, no subterranean cavities. Umay Mizbeach Adama, what does that mean? Shehu mechuber ba'adama, it's meant to be solidly attached to the ground. Shlo yivinenu la'agabi, keep him. You don't build a Mizbeach over these arches or over some sort of, cavities, la'agabi mechelos or tunnels. Okay, but what happened to the shisin? Which are these drainage systems, these pits underneath. How do you address that? So Taisus addresses that. He says on the top line here, Bar shel shisin, lo hayachashav mechila. This bar, this drain system of the shisin, was not considered a mechila. Given to tzarech mizbeach, because it was there to serve the mizbeach. It was a built-in feature in service of the mizbeach. So it doesn't negate the mizbeach. It's not considered built over cavities. It's part and parcel of the mizbeach structure itself. Okay, so the Mishnah tells us they extended the Mizbeach. For what reason? Initially, Rav Yosef says because they didn't have the special heavenly assistance, the special Eish Shel Shamayim, and it required a bigger area to allow for a successful burning of the karbanos. Rav Yosef. Now, Rav Yosef, as Rashi explains, he fell ill. So he learned and taught much, and then he forgot everything. And then he recovered. And now he's saying, look, I recall from way back, Lav Hainu Desanya, isn't that presented in the Brisa actually? Why do I have to give reasons because of the capacity and the fire? There is a more straightforward reason why. They expanded the Mizbeach now. Why the Anshe Knesset Agdoil during the second Beis HaMikdash decided to expand? Because they discovered the proper dimensions of the Mizbeach that actually can be much bigger. Something which Shlomo HaMelech during the first Beis HaMikdash did not know. That's the reason. Lav Hainu Desanya wasn't the reason presented in the Brisa of Echino Mizbeach al Mechanei. They prepared, they built the Mizbeach on its foundations, on its proper location, which was just now discovered. Shigiu L'Seif Midosav, they just discovered the proper dimensions. So it wasn't like they were trying to expand it. They just realized that you can make it bigger. Why not? Asks the Gemara, how could you say that? Shlomo HaMelech, who got his instructions from David HaMelech, who got his instructions from the Navi Shmuel, He didn't know exactly how to build a Mizbeach. The Pasuk says, Kol v'chsav, Miyad Hashem, Olai Hiskel. David HaMelech is saying, I got it all from Hashem, all the designs and dimensions and sizes. Elam Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef explains further. No, it's not like David HaMelech didn't know. Of course he did know. I think the Shlomo HaMelech didn't properly, if you can say so, didn't properly fully understand what David HaMelech was telling him. Kra Ashkach v'Darash. Now, during the second Beit HaMikdash, they finally gained proper clarity in that pasuk which was originally related to Shlomo HaMelech by David HaMelech, which turns out allows a bigger Mizbeach. So they did it to accommodate, a bigger crowd. Vayomer David, Zehu Beis Hashem Elokim v'zeh Mizbeach Yisrael. David HaMelech makes reference to the Beis Hashem Elokim. Now the bias is the actual structure, the Heichal Kodesh HaKadoshim. How long was that? Heichal was 40 amos long, the Kodesh HaKadoshim was 20, a total of 60. In the same pasuk, he makes reference to the Mizbeach as well. V'zeh Mizbeach Ha'ilul Yisrael. Who meant to connect in terms of dimensions. The size of the Mizbeach is meant to be key bias, similar to the dimensions of the actual Heichal and Kodesh HaKadoshim structure, which was 60 amos long. Ma bias, just like the bias is Shishim Amma 60 Amma, Af Mizbeach Shishim Amma, likewise the Mizbeach can be at a maximum of 60 Amma. So it was certainly okay to make it small, but now they realized they can make it bigger, they expanded it. Asks the Gemara. Now when they returned and they rebuilt the Beis HaMikdash, I understand how they were able to figure out where, because there were still some remnants, the perimeter remnants of the original structure, and they can pretty much build over it. But what about the Mizbeach? How did they know where to put the Mizbeach? I understand that Beis HaMikdash, the perimeter was still discernible. But how did they know exactly where to put the Mizbeach? Amar Belazar. They had this vision, this spiritual vision, pinpointing the exact location of where the Mizbeach is meant to be. And actually, where it still is, because on a spiritual plane, it still existed despite having been destroyed on a physical level. What did they see? Ro Mizbeach Banu. Amar Belazar, Ro Mizbeach Banu, Mechoil Asar HaGadol, Imad Makriv Alav. They saw a built Mizbeach. An image of a Mizbeach was Mechoil Asar HaGadol, a great Malach, standing and offering karbanis. Now, which karbanis? So actually, these are Toises in Mesachas Menachos. He brings two pshatim, either neshamas of tzaddikim, or nefesh for Hashem, or kvasim shel eish, fiery sheep. In any case, that activity was still ongoing, and based on that, they built the physical mizbeach in that location. Rav Yitzchak Nafcha Amar, he says, how did they know where? Afre shel Yitzchak ro, the ashes of Yitzchak Avinu, from the Akedas Yitzchak. That's what they saw in this, spiritual vision. Shemunach B'Semakim, positioned on the place of the Mizbeach. That's the place of Mesiras Nefesh, of Karbonis, from way back, from Adam Rishon, from Noach, from Yitzchak Avinu. Now, how do we have ashes? Yitzchak Avinu was never offered on the Mizbeach. Farshim say either it's a reference to the Ayel, the ram that was offered as a substitute instead of Yitzchak. That's called Afar Shel Yitzchak, because Avraham Avinu in his mind was willing to bring Yitzchak. So this is sort of named after him. Actually, I saw another beautiful pshat. The Pirkei Rebbe Elazar says that you should know Yitzchak's Avinu's neshama left him. When Avraham approached him with the sword, he passed out. His neshama left him momentarily, and then he regained his life. And he actually made a brach. You know which brach he made when he came back alive? Guess what? Baruch Ata Hashem, Mechaya HaMesim. So that moment of true death, true Mesiras Nefesh, that's what we call Afar Shel Yitzchak. Ro Shemunach B'Semakim. Rav Shmuel Achmeni Amar, how did they know where the Mizbeach was meant to be built? Mikol HaBayis Kuloi. Throughout the entire area, Heirichu Reach Teres, they were able to smell, I guess, that spiritual, impression, the residue of the Ikteris from the first Beis HaMikdash. Misham, from that exact location where the Mizbeach was meant to be, they smelled a bit differently. Heirichu Reich Ivarim, they smelled the reich of the limbs of the Karbonis, processed over there. This way they knew exactly where it was meant to be built. Actually, they had 3 Nevi'im that came up to Eretz Yisrael with them from Golos, from Bavli. Who are they? Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. And each one prophesied and told them something else. Echad, one Navi, Sheheid Lehem al Mizbeach. Explain to them that in fact the Mizbeach can be built at a maximum of 60 by 60 amma, perhaps by showing them that new insight in the pasuk, as we explained before. The second Navi taught them exactly what a Mizbeach is meant to be. The third Navi taught them bias, even when there's no Beis HaMikdash built yet, or even nowadays when we have no Beis HaMikdash, we can bring karbanos. The kedusha is still active and still intact. Masisa Tana, in the Bryce we had a slightly different version of what they taught us. In fact, 3 Nevi'im came up from Golos with them, and each one taught them something else. Echad, the first Navi, taught them Sheheid Lem al Mizbeach val Malkom Mizbeach, the size and location of Mizbeach, both concepts. Ve'echad, the second Navi, taught them Sheheid Lem Shmakriv Naf Shem Bayis. Ve'echad, the third one, Sheheid Lem, prophesied to them Ala Torah Shetikosev Ashuris. Initially, the Torah wasn't written like we have today in Ashuris letters. Rashi calls it Ksav Libuna, Ksav Ivri. He made that transformation. He taught them that going forward, we're meant to write the Torah using this font, Ksav Ashuris. Tana Rabban. A Mizbeach has many features. Keren has that protruding corner coming up on all 4 sides, right? The Kevesh, the ramp leading up to the Mizbeach, V'yisoid, that step, a foundation, encircling the bottom of the Mizbeach, V'ribua, and the very fact that the Mizbeach was built as an exact square. All these components are me'akev, are required, are critical, ma'akev. You're missing that, Mizbeach is possible. However, the exact dimensions, well, that's pliable. Midas arkoy, or midas rachboy, midas kamosay, ma'akven, width, length, height, that's not me'akev. Up until 60 amma, as we explained before. How do we know that in fact the features such as Keren, Kevesh, Yisoid, and Rabo are essential? Amar Rav Huna Makra, because regarding all 4, the Torah uses the term ha-mizbeach, the mizbeach, to indicate as is without flexibility. Wherever the pasuk uses the word ha-mizbeach la'akev, it's meant to be critical. Elamiyat asks the Gemara, if that's the case, what about the chiyur? Chiyur, Rashi explains, are these circles, whether it's something encircling the mizbeach or circular designs. Chiyur relates to circles. So chiyur the Rebbe, according to Rebbe, there were these circular designs ringing around the wall of the mizbeach. V'sayvev l'Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it wasn't chiyur, it wasn't designed like that. It was more like a bump, a little ledge encircling the mizbeach, also for ornamental purposes. Now, regarding this feature, the pasuk uses the word ha-mizbeach. Are you going to tell me that that is essential as well? If you're missing that design, mizbeach is pasuk ma'akim, because the word ha-mizbeach relates to this thing. So you meant to place, there was like a netting underneath the this charkev, again encircling the mizbeach. So charkev, according to Rebbe, means these circular designs. According to Rabbi Yehuda, means these circular this ledge encircling the mizbeach. But in any case, the word ha-mizbeach is said in connection to this feature. Tachas charkev ha-mizbeach l'mata. V'tanya, in fact, we have a machlokes as to the exact definition of the charkev feature, this ornamental feature. V'tanya, ezo charkev, what exactly is that? Rabbi Yomer zachir. These circular, designs around the mizbeach. Rabbi Yomer zachir, it was a ledge encircling the mizbeach. So is that meant to be essential and critical? In 100%, says the Gemara, you're right. The Sanya, in fact, we have a brisa expressing that sentiment. The Sanya, we have a brisa. On that day, that was that unique day during the Yom Tov of Sukkot, when we're meant to pour to offer the water on the mizbeach, Nisuch HaMayim, and there was this Tzeduki fellow who didn't believe in oral explanation of the psukim that were meant to do this. So he was a kohen, and in fact, he was given the honors of pouring the water on the mizbeach. Instead of pouring it on the mizbeach, he poured it on his feet. And the crowds were less than enamored. And in fact, they had this ready, useful weapon in their hands to express their disappreciation. It was the last day of Sukkot. They had the esrogim in their hands that they no longer needed for the mitzvah. So they pelted them with esrogim. And what happened? The Brisa says, that day, nifkim oker mizbeach. So due to all this pelting, the mizbeach got chipped. The corner of the mizbeach got chipped and became puzzle for future use until they can call the repairman Matzah Yom Tov. In the meantime, they temporarily sort of closed up the hole, so it's not visible and disrespectful. Bull shall melt. They brought this handful of salt, so smooth, and they plugged up that chip. Not because by doing so it reactivates the mizbeach. You have to properly repair the mizbeach. Rather, it's just so that it shouldn't look chipped. Why? Because a chipped mizbeach doesn't work. Shekol mizbeach she'en lo. If a mizbeach is missing one of the following features, keren v'kevesh v'yisod v'ribua, not properly squared, puzzle. Here comes one more. Right? Likewise, that ornamental molding, that ledge encircling the mizbeach, is also critical because wherever the term ha-mizbeach is mentioned, it denotes essentiality, as we just explained. Tanu Rabbanan. So what exactly is the charkev? Tanu Rabbanan. Ezehu charkev. How do you define the charkev? Ben keren lekeren, mokoim hiluch ragla kehanim. Amma. It was a little walkway meant for kehanim to walk around the top of the mizbeach. It was around the perimeter of the mizbeach. Mokoim hiluch ragla kehanim. Ben keren lekeren, between corner to corner. So we had these crummies protruding on the four, far corners of the mizbeach. Between the corners is the charkev, and likewise one amma further in to create this walkway around the perimeter of the mizbeach. Asks the Gemara, hold it. You tell me ben keren lekeren, and you tell me makam hiluch ragli hakanim amma, which indicates that the kehanim would walk between the corners, but then they would get stuck when they get to the next corner. Right? You have a corner here, and a walkway between. It just takes you from this corner to this corner. Once you get to this corner, you're stuck. You mean to say they were walking around between the corners? They couldn't get around, they would get stuck. Rather, the Brisa means that this little walkway, Rashi says, was actually sort of inverted. It was a drop lower. The surface was dropped lowered at that point. Right? So there was like a little ledge sticking up at the far perimeter of the mizbeach, all around, like a little a mini gate. It was very, very short, but just a little bit of a bump, so to speak, at the far end, for protection purposes, to prevent them from slipping off the mizbeach. But this indentation, this inverted area, which was dropped a bit below the regular surface of the mizbeach, which was meant for the kehanim to walk, started at the very end of the mizbeach, but it had to extend inward past the corners, because the corners would block them from walking all around properly. It had to go an amma inside as well. So it's basically two ammas around the perimeter of the mizbeach. Rather, it's like this. U'makayim hiluch ragli hakanim amma. This charkev started at the very end, but then extended inward past the kronis, which were an amma wide, an amma inward as well, and again all the way around the mizbeach, to allow for an uninterrupted stroll around the mizbeach, where they would look after the mizbeach and set up the maroches, the fires, etc. But the actual Hiluch Ragel Gehanim, which was officially called the Gehanim pathway, was merely an Amma. That was the internal Amma, which was a proper circle, or I should say a proper square, encircling the entire perimeter, the walkable perimeter of the Mizbeach. Ask the Gemara of Aksiv. So the Charkov, this walkway was on top, not on the walls of the Mizbeach. So Aksiv, we have a pasuk that indicates that Charkov was more like a feature, a design, which was affixed to the, which was featured on the wall, on the vertical walls of the Mizbeach, around the Mizbeach. The pasuk there speaks about the Mizbeach in the Midbar. There was a resha, some sort of ornamental netting, which was affixed to the walls of the Mizbeach all around. It was beneath this Charkov, and it reached until the halfway point of the Mizbeach. So clearly the Charkov was something on the walls, not on top. The term Charkov, which, as we said earlier, based on Rashi, denotes something circular or something encircling. There were two types, two variations. The ornamental one, which was built into the walls, was just for ornamental purposes. Versus the walkway along the exterior, the perimeter of the top surface of the Mizbeach was l'keihanim l'nishtarku. That was meant for a walkway for the keihanim to give them traction. They shouldn't, slip off the Mizbeach. Midas urkai, umidas rachpai, umidas keimas ein. Width, length, height of the Mizbeach, that's not critical. You can enlarge it as long as you don't go past 60 am. Amar of money. You can't go smaller than Moshe Rabbeinu's Mizbeach in the Midbar. How much is that? Rav Yosef, Amma. An Amma square, an Amma by an Amma. Don't go below that. Others laughed at Rav Yosef. What? Only an Amma? Pasuk says it was 5 by 5. Chamish Ammas Oirev, Chamish Ammas Reich. How could you say just an Amma? Ravu Yam Mizbeach. Amar le Abaye responded to Rav Yosef. So he came in defense of Rav Yosef and he says, Dilma Mokim Marocha Kamamar. Maybe when you said an Amma by an Amma, you didn't mean total exterior dimension. Of course the starting point is 5 by 5. But you have to deduct 2 Ammas on either side. One for the krones, one for the walkway, resulting in merely an Amma by an Amma as the actual Maracha where they burnt the Karbanis. Dilma, perhaps you meant Mokim Marocha Kamamar. You meant the place where they burn the Karbanis. That's what you said in Amma. Amalei says, right on, you got it. You understand what I meant. Mar, you, the Gavra Rabbo, you're a great man. You made the effort to comprehend what I had in mind. That's a great man. You're not busy saying your own thing. Trying to understand the other person's perspective. Gavra Rabbo, that's a great man. You can humble yourself and patiently try to decipher what I had to say. The Gavra Rabbo, Yodam I come in, you truly understand what I had in mind. Kori Alayu, but he wasn't happy with the other ones who challenged him. He called them Bnei Keturah. Rashi says, why Bnei Keturah? Keturah, right, was Avram Avinu's. He married Keturah after Sarah. So technically, the children of Keturah are technically Avram Avinu's children as well, but not like the original. Bnei Keturah, Bnei Avram Atam, Avaloi Kizera Yitzchak. You're not like the Zera Yitzchak. You're not like the original. You're just a copy. A similar incident involving Bnei Keturah occurred with Rabbi Tarfon. Bnei Achsei, Rabbi Tarfon. Tarfon had these nephews. Bnei Achsei, his sister's sons. Havayasva coming to our time. They were sitting in front of him and they weren't responsive. They weren't getting, they weren't engaged. And he wanted to get them going. Pasach va'amar, he began with a pasuk. And he deliberately misquoted a pasuk. Avram went and he took another wife. Her name was Yoichni. Okay, he wanted to sort of trigger some sort of reaction. I'm related. What do you mean? Keturah. The pasuk says Keturah. Why are you saying Yoichni? Karei Aleim b'nei Keturah. He called them b'nei Keturah, meaning good morning. Perhaps because Keturah, Rashi actually brings, means tied up. So sitting there all tied up, Mom wanted to get them involved. Amar of Abaye bar Huna, Amar of Chama bar Guria. So we speak about the Malkei Marocha in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, which was merely an Amma by an Amma. Likewise, Gezirun Shasa Moshe, the blocks of firewood that Moshe Rabbeinu would put on the Mizbeach, fashion for the Mizbeach was merely that size. Erkan Amma, V'rechman Amma. It was long and wide an Amma. It was a square. V'ayvyan, how thick, how high. Kimachak, like this apparatus they would use, goyder sa'ah, to wipe away the sa'ah. So basically, the sa'ah was a container, a measuring container, and they knew exactly what it was. They had a certain standard size, some sort of block that they would use to smooth out the top to ensure that it's even and not, overflowing. So that's how thick the Mizbeach wood was. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, V'ama Geduma. You meant to know, although it's an Amma by an Amma, but it's supposed to be a mini Amma. There are two ways to measure an Amma, with 6 Tefachim or 5. It's meant to be a 5 Tefach Amma. Why? So that it doesn't get in the way of the Kehanim trying to walk around the Marach. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Why a mini Amma? Just make sure it's an exact Amma. Isn't this what the Brisa meant to teach us? Allah Eitzim, Ashar Allah Eish, Ashar Allah Mizbeach. So they put the oil on the fire, on the wood, which is on the fire, which is on the Mizbeach. The point of the pasuk is to emphasize, make sure the wood doesn't stick out. It shouldn't stick out, but as long as it doesn't stick out, it can be a perfect Amma. It doesn't have to be a miniature Amma. Tanan Hasam, we have a Mishnah regarding the ramp, the walkway leading up to the Kevish. Kevish Hayil Roy Mishal Mizbeach. So let's just picture it. Entering the Azara from the entry from the east side and facing the west, the Heichal, the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Where was the Mizbeach? In front of you. And Darim would in this case be to the left, right? Safin to the right, Darim to the left. So the Kevish would ride up to the Mizbeach from the Darim. That was considered the face of the Mizbeach. Kevish Hayil Droy Mishal Mizbeach. How long was it? Oirech 32 amas long, 16 amas wide. How do we know? The Kevish was on that side. You do the shchita of the carbon on the side, on the floor near the Mizbeach. Now Yerach means a thigh, a foot, right? The foot of the Mizbeach was tzafin to the right. Well, if the foot is to the right, then the face is to the left, like a body, right? Body lying down. If your foot is there, your head is there. Shei Yerach b'tzafin, the foot is to the right. Apparently, upon of the face was to the left, b'darim. And that's why you enter the Mizbeach from Darim. That's the face, that's the entry. Who says? Maybe it's like a person sitting. His face and his feet are heading in the same direction. Perhaps the foot is to the tzafin, and so is his face. We visualize a person lying on his stomach, on his face, right? On his front. Feet to the right, face to the left. Maybe the opposite turrets, maybe the person's sitting. Face and feet in the same direction. The word Ravua is used to describe the Mizbeach. Ravua means crouched. Adam Roivitz, says Rashi, Umushkav, lying on the floor. Well, the word Ravua is already teaching us something. As we learned before, it has to be square. How could you use it for this as well? Miksiv Miruba. Then it would say Miruba. It was just for squareness. Ravua is coming to add as well. that it's meant to be lying down. According to you, Miksev Ravutz, wouldn't the word Ravutz, crouching on the floor, be more accurate word to use? Amalei Rabuah. That's why the pasuk decided to use Rabuah. Rabuah can be learned both ways. It covers both. The mashmachi, mashmachi. It indicates crouching and squareness. So we have a source that the kevesh was coming up from the darim side. That was the face of the mizbeach. And actually, in the following brisa, we have another source for kevesh's location. The sun, you have a brisa or bidaimer. Umaloiseo punois kadim. This is describing the mizbeach in the time of Yecheskel. Umaloiseo, the way you ascend, the way you climb up to the mizbeach, punois kadim. When you get up, you turn to the right. Sorry, you turn kadim. You turn to mizrach. Right? So the only way, called pinashat apaina, lo yu al derechim in the mizrach. So we learn from here that when he gets up to the mizbeach and he makes a turn, right, panois, where is he going to end up? Kadam mizrach. Kadam means mizrach, right, front of the world. Hence, we know that the mizbeach was the Adarim side. This way, when you get up to Mizbeach, you make a turn, a right turn, you're at Mizrach. So it fits the description. Well, derech smaila Mizrach. Okay, I agree. You got to turn into Mizrach, but maybe the kevesh rode up the right side, the tzafan side. And then when you get to the top, you turn to Mizrach, you turn left to Mizrach. It doesn't say you turn right to Mizrach. I understand you have to turn to Mizrach. Fine, you have to encounter Mizrach right there. Maybe by making a left turn. So maybe the Zevach was to the right of the Azara, to the Tzafin side. You can't say that because, as we're going to learn in the Pasuk, the proper way to encircle something, certainly in the Beis HaMikdash, was to the right. Rashi explains, basically you're facing the Mizbeach and walking towards your right. It's the only way that a right shift would end up in Mizrach is by going up the Darim. By going up Darim. When you get to the top, you shift to the right, you're in Mizrach. It's the only way it can work. You can't indicate you turn to the left. The Tani Rami Bar, Yecheskel. Yam Shas Shlomo, that pool that Shlomo Melech built, Oymed al Shneim Asar Bakar. Pasuk describes it as being positioned on 12 ornamental cattle. Shloisha Panim Tzafon, 3 facing Tzafon. Shloisha Panim Yama, 3 facing west. Shloisha Panim Negba, 3 facing south. Shloisha Panim Mizracha, 3 facing east. In that order, right? Why is the pasuk enumerated in that order? Because it's right to left. Right? When you go from north to west to south, you're going from right to left. Because again, you're facing the item and you're sort of moving to your right. We learn from here, called pinashat apaina, when you encircle something, lo yayu el derech yamin lemizrach. You're meant to be going towards your right. Okay, so in our case, getting up to Mizbeach through the Darim accomplishes this objective. When you start shifting to the right, you're going to end up in Mizrach, as per the other pasuk. When you turn, and when you turn, you're meant to go to the right, as we just established from the Yam Shel Shleimai. You're meant to end up Kadim in the Mizrach. That only works since the Kevesh took you up the Darim side, you made a right, you're in Mizrach. How could you learn from Yam Shel Shleimai, describing the Bakar standing here, there, and over there? Maybe Homibay Leguv is just telling you how it was. Who's to say that it's teaching us a lesson, a concept? Rashi says, who says you can learn from there? which way to turn in the midrash when you're doing the avodah? Answers the Gemara, no, there's more embedded in those words. Imkain, because if it's only in terms of configuration of the yam, poinim, why the word poinim and poinim over and over? Lamali, what's the point? If not to tell you that when you are doing poinim, when you are turning and encircling something, you're meant to go to the right. Okay, so the kevesh was to the darim for one or two reasons. Either the pasuk, that the panim of the mizbeach, the face, the entry is meant to be to darim, yerech hasafin, faces darim, or to enable this right turn into mizrach. Shal Rabbi Shimon ben Yosi, ben Nekunya, that was his name, he asked Rabbi Yosi. He had a question to ask him. Is that true that Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai taught us as follows? Is that true that he would tell us, is that true that he taught this lesson? That there's a space between the kevesh and mizbeach? It wasn't flush. There's a little gap between the ramp and the mizbeach. Omar Loisi says, of course, how could you not say so? You wouldn't agree with that? It's a pasuk. It's a hekesh and a pasuk. Now the pasuk says, you meant to process the oila, both parts, the basar and the dam. And we connect, we compare. How do you apply the blood? We know from the pasuk, v'zarka, you meant to spritz it, to spray it, to throw it. Likewise, the basar is meant to be thrown. That necessitated this little airspace to require a throwing above it. We connect. Basar to dam. Ma dam bezrika, basar bezrika. Just like zrika applies to dam, it applies to basar. And that's why they had this little gap. Amar loy. So he says, look, I agree about this throwing thing, but who says that required a gap? Sure, you throw the basar on the fire. You stand near the fire, you throw it. Stand right next to the baruch, you throw it here. You don't have to have that gap between the kevesh and the back from afar. My opinion is, you stand near the fire range when you throw it into the fire. He says, well, that you have to do anyways. You don't need a pasuk for that. Nobody's going to jump into the fire. You have to stand from afar and throw it in. Without a pasuk, that would be obvious. Apparently the pasuk is coming to add another requirement. Hence, this gap, this airspace. When he throws it, you think he's standing right by the fire and throwing it in, or he's standing a little bit, on the perimeter of the fire? Of course, you would assume right? He's throwing it into the burning marach, right? Again, the question is, he's throwing it into a burning one, which requires him to stand a bit far, or the marach she'ened luk, or is he throwing it to the part of the marach which is not yet on fire? Let's assume he's putting it on the actual fire, right? The maracha was this fire arrangement, right? This wood arrangement. The fire was assumingly in the middle, and the outside was sort of not yet, was still wood. We assume he threw it into the actual heat of the fire. So obviously he had to toss it in, because he's standing, on the outside, right? Again, let's assume when the kohen deposits the cover material into the marach, is he throwing it into the fiery area, which requires him to stand from afar, or is he throwing it into the sides, which are not yet burning? Let's assume he's throwing it into the fire. And of course he has to stand beside the fire and throw it in. However, we assume so that wouldn't need a pasuk. That's obvious. Over there, there's no other way to do it other than tossing it in. That's obvious without a pasuk. Apparently, the pasuk is coming to add this requirement of the avir between the kevesh and the mizbeach. This way, he would stand on the other side of the avir and throw it over the avir. Rapapa Amar. I'll tell you how we know that the avir was required. You can't just suffice with throwing it in, standing on the mizbeach near the fire and throwing it in and fulfill your throwing requirement. You need more than that, because the pasuk compares the basar to the dam. Now the dam was applied as follows. He would stand on the floor beside the, outside the mizbeach, on the floor beside the mizbeach, and throw it on the mizbeach. Now the dam would would fly over the floor of the Azara, right? Right, so its flight would take it over the floor of the Azara, right? You would stand near the Mizbech, throw it on the Mizbech, so it would fly over the floor. And when the pasuk compares the basar to the dam, to indicate that the basar requires the same method. It has to be airborne over floor. So throwing it on the Mizbech itself, outside the fire, into the fire, wouldn't suffice. And that proves that you need an aver, that airspace between the kevesh and the Mizbech, so the basar can be thrown over that in fulfillment of this requirement. We're comparing it to the blood. Madam, just like by throwing the blood on the Mizbech, aver karka mafsika, the airspace over the floor separates, meaning to say it has to fly over the floor before it reaches the Mizbech. Basar likewise. The pasuk is telling it the basar as well. Aver karka mafsika has to fly over the karka. Hence, we need an aver between kevesh and the Mizbech. Rashi Tesis explains you need an aver gadol, a substantial gap. Gadol, a nicker, should be visible, noticeable. Shul tzarech aver. That's being done in fulfillment of this requirement. Amar Rav Yehuda. There was one primary rampway, a big one, but there were two mini ones, one on either side of the big one. Shnei kvasim ktanim, kvashim ktanim, yoytziv nakevesh. There were two mini ramps extending off the big one. Rashi explains. So we have the big one leading up to Mizbeach, and then we have a mini one coming off the big one, leading to where? Leading to the seiviv, to the walkway around the Mizbeach. So if the kohen had to do something on the walkway, applying the blood of the chatas, so he would begin with the big one and then veer off, make a right to the mini ramp, which wouldn't go as high. The big one would go all the way up to Mizbeach. The mini one would just branch off and take you basically to the midway point of the wall of Mizbeach, to the walkway encircling the Mizbeach. And then to the left as well, there was another little ramp, which actually served a different purpose. So this was for the kohen coming off the Mizbeach. When he finished, applying the blood of the karban, of the chatas, so he would need to pour the leftover blood at the side on the foundation of the bottom of the Mizbeach. So he would come off the Mizbeach, and he would make a right. Right? He's coming off the Mizbeach and make a right off the main ramp to a mini ramp, which would take him to the bottom, to the floor, to the side, which was at that corner. That's the Darei Marav corner, to pour the shiraim on the side. So aside from the primary kevesh, there were two secondary service, so to speak, service ramps, serving different purposes. Right, which was meant to take they were facing the side, one was facing the side, one was facing the side, and meant to allow the kohen access to those areas in a convenient fashion. Although these ramps would reach the Mizbech, but again, it wasn't flush, it wasn't touching the Mizbech. It was like a little teeny, minuscule airspace, like a hair's breadth, just a teeny space. Why? Because Mizbech had to be a complete square. So you couldn't attach anything to it, which would disfigure its configuration, right? The word saviv is used to describe the Mizbech. It's meant to have a full encirclement, right? Without any, disfiguration. Rabbi Avo Amar, another pasuk, Ravua, it's meant to be a perfect square. So these added features had to be a bit, disconnected, separate from the Mizbech. Now, why both psukim to describe the same thing, Saviv and Ravua? Both have a purpose. Both are needed. Saviv and Ravua. Why? Because the pasuk only says Saviv. I mean, the Agam Yaga, I would say that Mizbech was not symmetrically built; it was more circular built. because Rachman Ravuah to tell you it's meant to be a square. Because Rachman Ravuah, if it only say Ravuah, I would say, okay, it has to be symmetrical, but it could be a rectangle of Amina, the Urich, long, the cut and narrow, like a rectangle. Rachman Saviv, to tell you that it was a perfect, evenly configured structure, but actually it was a square. Tanan Hasan. What was the total length of the kevish? Right, if you combine the kevish and the mizbeach together, what was the total length from side to side? Now the kevish, as we said, was 32 amma long. Mizbeach was 32 as well. The final build. You would think a total of 64. No, says the Mishnah. Hanhasam of a Mishnah kevish on mizbeach shishim v'shtayim, total of 62. Where did the extra 2 disappear? Hani shitim v'arba avu. It really should total 64, not 62. The answer is 2 ammas were overlapped. Right? Because, let's just picture it. The Mizbeach was 32 by 32, but exterior configuration, including the side and bottom and the Saivev, right? These ledges, these steps. Now, the Kevish led up to the Mizbeach. Now, let's just picture it. When it gets close to the Mizbeach, and you have these protrusions, the Kevish will sort of fly right over them. Will cover them. Right? So they get sort of embedded within the Kevish itself. So those 2 ammas, the Yisayid and the Yisayid, can't be counted twice, because now they're sort of sandwiched together, embedded in the kevish as well. So either you count those ammas as part of the kevish's ammas, or the mizbeach's ammas. You can't count them twice. It's an overlap, right? So that explains why we deduct 2 of the grand total, for a total of 62. Nimtza perech amma. Turns out that the kevish was perech, like hovered, right? It covered an amma al Yisayid, v'am al Saiviv. So you deduct 2 of 64. How steep was the kevish? You meant to know kol kivshei kvashim, all types of large or small ramps that were in the Beis Hamikdash were built in a sort of gradual incline. Shalosh amos. So it was 3 amos per every amma of height, in a gradual incline. Shalosh amos lama. Except chutz mikivshei shel kevish. Except for the ramp leading up to the Mizbeach, well, you needed more graduation. It had to be more gradual and easy to use. Rashi says because they would carry heavy loads, heavy carbones, and it was slippery, it was smooth. So it needed a softer, more gradual incline. Instead of 3 amma of travel per amma of height, it was 3.5. Every amma of height had 3.5 amma of surface. 3.5 plus etzba v'shlish etzba, 1 1/3 etzba. B'zachrusa, using your thumb. How do you get to this total? So Rashi explains, because we're dealing with an equation of 9 amma high. That's how high the top of the kevish was. It reached 9 ammas, and the length, the actual surface, was 32. So if you split 32 by 9, you get to this total. Why? Because let's break it down. You have 9 times, let's say 3.5, which gets you 31.5. Okay, so you're almost there. You still need to cover the last half a amma. Half a amma is 3 tvachim. Each tefach is 4 etzbos. So if you take the total etzbos, 3 tvachim is 12 etzbos. So divided by 9, it's 1 1/3. Perfect. So basically, each one of these 9 ammas of goiv of height generated 3.5 amma, required 3.5 ammas plus a finger and a third of a finger in terms of surface. Okay? We spoke about the fact that during the second Beis Hamikdash, when they came up, they decided to enlarge the Mizbeach. We had several explanations. Either it was for capacity purposes, which Rabbi Yosef took back and concluded that it was just a matter of clarification, that they discovered that the Mizbeach can be bigger, and of course do it bigger to accommodate more. We had another pshat, it was to accommodate the shisin, right, the drainage system of the Nesachim, which was meant to be embedded in the Mizbeach. We had the discussion about discovering the Makom of Mizbeach. They saw the Malach for Shal Yitzchak. Three Nevi'im taught them all kinds of things regarding the Beis HaMikdash and the Mizbeach. We learned about the essential features of the Mizbeach. We learned about the size of the Eitzim on the Mizbeach. We learned about the Kevesh, location, size, and incline. All the best to you, and Atzlacha Rabbah.